Okay, good morning. Today we're going to talk about Earth's climate zones and the weather and ecosystems that they produce. So let's get started. What is a climate zone? Well, if you look at this map over here on the left, you'll see that this is not a map of countries and continents, it's a map of climate zones. And a climate zone is a region that has particular weather conditions that have been stable over time. We think of weather as changing every day. We have a sunny day, we have a rainy day, a snowy day, sleet, hail, all kinds of different weather in this part of the world. You know, we live in Colorado right here. However, if you average out weather conditions in our region over time, that's when you get climate. And different areas in the world have different weather conditions measured over time and different what we call climate zones. And these climate zones are roughly established along lines of latitude. If you look over here, you'll see that in the United States, we have a similar climate with the lower part of Canada, and if you go across the Atlantic Ocean, we have a similar climate with Europe and most of Northern Asia and Japan. If you drop below, we have there is a different climate in the American South, and in parts of Mexico, it's much hotter, and that would translate across into Africa, parts of Southern Asia. Along the equator, you'll see you have the hottest climate zone here, and then as you get further away from the equator, going towards the South Pole, you'll see the climates get cooler as you go further south. So the climate zones in the world are roughly established by lines of latitude. Different scientists have different numbers of climate zones. We're going to talk about 8 today. Climate zones determine what ecosystems and what animals can thrive in the certain area, because certain animals and certain plants are adapted to live in a different kind of climate and ecosystem. So we're going to talk about ecosystems and climates today, and just know the connection between animals and their climate is really important. This is why people are concerned about climate change, because if climates change very quickly, then that can lead to things like mass extinctions and problems for animals that live in those ecosystems. So let's talk about Earth's ecosystems and climates today. First one we're going to talk about is a temperate deciduous forest. Also, you can abbreviate it as TDF. Deciduous is a word that means trees that shed their leaves annually, which means once a year. They have big, broad leaves, and they change their colors during the seasons. An example of this would be the aspen trees that you can see if you go up high in the mountains in Colorado. They are often found in a latitude area climate where rainfall occurs all year. So even though in the summer we don't have a lot of rain, this year we didn't have a lot of rain, we usually have rain in the summer times all year, and so we have deciduous forests in Colorado. These kind of trees lose their leaves in the fall, as I mentioned. These trees include like oak trees, beech trees, maple trees. This is the kind of climate where you have 4 seasons. And this would be found like in the United States. We have a lot of this temperate deciduous forest. Temperate grasslands. Now if you were to go to the eastern part of Colorado, you would notice that once you get out of the mountains, it gets very flat. And the natural plants that live there, it's a grassland ecosystem. They have mild, moderate temperatures that are neither too hot nor too cold. They're found between roughly 40 and 60 degrees north and south of the equator, so along those lines of latitude. Summers are hot, winters are cold, but overall it's not too extreme. They have really good soils that have lots of nutrients and are great for growing crops. So if you were to drive across Nebraska or Iowa or parts of Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, they're going to have a lot of good farmland to grow a lot of crops. They're going to be a lot of green, grassy area. They often have more rainfall in this area as well, so a good climate for farming. These are the grasslands. The next type of ecosystem is a coniferous forest. A coniferous forest, that is the opposite of a deciduous forest. So coniferous forest, you can see the word cone is kind of in there. So these have cone and needle bearing, mostly evergreen trees. So evergreen trees mean they do not lose their leaves or needles in the wintertime. They keep them all year long. They often find coniferous forests in cold areas that have long winter and high precipitations. Some of the biggest trees in the world, like the redwoods in California and the giant sequoias, are found in coniferous forests. We have coniferous forests in Colorado as well. If you go up into the mountains, you'll see a lot of coniferous forests. They're also across Canada, a lot of Alaska as well. Regions found in the upper 40-degree latitudes all the way to 60 degrees north of the equator are considered coniferous forests often. They have short summers and long cold winters. These trees do not change color with the seasons, and examples would be like not only sequoias and redwoods, but like fir trees, cedar trees, spruce trees, the kinds of trees that you would consider to be Christmas trees, because they stay green all year. And if you were to go and find a pine cone, that is a seed pod from a coniferous forest tree. Tundra, the tundra ecosystem. So if you were to go to the far north or the far south, you will find tundra. It'd be like an example in the Arctic region or the Antarctic region. It's where it's vast, flat, no trees because the ground is frozen and the trees cannot get the nutrients they need. And so it's a kind of a frozen land. The actual ground is frozen. It's called permafrost, so it is permanently frozen. Summers are very short. Winters are very long and cold. These are found in like the super high latitudes, both north and south, where there's little rainfall but lots of snow near the poles. The plants would include like Arctic moss, animals like polar bears, also penguins living in the South Pole. That would be the tundra ecosystem. Tropical rainforests. So if we go away from the poles and towards the equator, we get to the tropical rainforests. These are hot, moist biome. Biome means like a life sphere or like what's living there. So hot and moist, where it rains all year round, and they have dense canopies of vegetation. Canopy would be like a covering. So if you're at the forest floor, it might be so many plants you can't see the sun because it's so dense with life. These are found near the equator, and the rainforest like the Amazon or the rainforest in Africa. Weather is hot and wet all year. These regions have high amounts of rain because they have lots of sunlight, heat, and humid air. They have rubber trees, acacia trees. You're not going to find a tropical rainforest in the United States. We live too high in northern latitude to find that. You're going to find these around South America, Africa, Indonesia, where the climate is much warmer. Next one would be a tropical grassland. So a tropical grassland is different than a temperate grassland because they are found closer to the equator. There's a mix of trees and grass, and these vary upon the amounts of rainfall. They're often found between the tropics and near the equator. So imagine Africa, you have like the equator and all the rainforest, and then just below it you have these tropical grasslands like zebras and elephants, those kind of things. They have two seasons, either a wet season or a dry season, and they have very low rainfall. So those are the big differences between temperate and tropical, is that the amount of rainfall. The tropical grasslands are, they have like one really, really rainy season and one really, really dry season, whereas a temperate grassland is more moderate the whole time. The plants that live here include like red oak grass, acacia trees. Animals would be like lions and zebras. You find a lot of tropical grasslands in Africa. A Mediterranean climate. A Mediterranean climate has a hot summer and a cold, wet winter. These are found around 30 to 45 degrees north and south of the equator. So this would be some places of California, also in Europe around the Mediterranean Sea. They have summer and winter. They have a lot of what we call drought-resistant plants, which means that they can withstand the dry climate. A drought means when there's a period of low rainfall. So olive trees, like kind of these scrub, deserty looking plants, vines like grapes grow really well there. So in the Mediterranean part of the world around Europe, we have this kind of climate. Also, like in California, has this kind of climate too. Our last ecosystem is the desert. Remember, it's desert with one S, not desert with two S's. A desert would be an area of landscape where there is little precipitation. So there is not much rain or snow. And the living conditions are often hostile for most plants and animals, though many have adapted to live in these conditions, like the saguaro cactuses that grow in Arizona. These are often found closer to the equator than the grasslands or the forests, 15 to 35 degrees north and south of the equator. We do have deserts in the United States, in Arizona, in Utah. We live really close to the desert right now in Ignacio. The days are extremely hot, the nights are usually pretty cold, rain is sparse, and so are the plants, but there are a lot of cactuses and other animals that have adapted to live in these ecosystems. Okay, that is it for your notes today. Please make sure you get this finished and turned in to me by the end of the day tomorrow. Thank you so much, and talk to you in class.